If you have ongoing exposure to controlling people, it's a virtual certainty that you're going to experience blurry boundaries, which is why I've created the extensive online course called This Is Me, Establishing Boundaries with the Controllers in Your Life. There's a link below that will give you all of the details, and I hope that you would find it therapeutic. The more you engage with a narcissistic person, the more you realize that their conscience is, well, shall we say, a bit flexible or fluid. There are times when an individual can know the difference between right and wrong, but in the moment, that narcissist can think, well, right, wrong, or my way, and they can lay aside their sense of what they know to be proper and correct so that they can pursue some of their more nefarious goals with you. See, let's remind ourselves that when we talk about having a conscience, we're just talking about that inner voice that says, I have values and standards and principles that guide me. Your conscience consists of your moral compass. You have a good sense of what is right and what is wrong, what makes sense and what does not make sense. There's an inner sense of rules. Basically, your conscience gives you your strong sense of why you do the things that you do. And in the best case scenario, your conscience can guide you into a life of decency and responsibility toward other individuals. Now, let's keep in mind, though, that when we're talking about narcissism, we're talking about a whole host of characteristics that are also on the inside of that person. And these characteristics can wind up overshadowing the need to have a conscience. Narcissists, at the very base of it all, want to be in control, and specifically, they want to be in control over you. They want to make sure that they control your opinion of them, your impression of them, and so that becomes such a strong need on the inside of them that becomes a driving force to who they are. That defines them. In addition, they also have an attitude of entitlement. They feel that they're a little extra special than other individuals. A lot. They want to be superior. They can be very thin-skinned. Those would be the primary drivers of the narcissist. And so in the moments where the conscience needs to say, hey, look, there's a certain path that we need to go, the narcissism instead takes over, and it overrides what the conscience would lead a person to be. So you can see that when I say that their conscience is fluid, it all depends on the mood of the moment. Now, let me see if I can give you a few ideas of how this actually plays out. For example, it's known that narcissists can be rather less than decent with maintaining the truth. Let's suppose that you're talking with that person about something that has happened between you and them, and you realize you're not being honest. You're not admitting the things that you need to admit. You're just over there trying to run your version of things through me that is not at all based on facts. Somewhere in the inside of that narcissist mind, they would have, this is their conscience, they would have some notion that says honesty is a good characteristic. But in that moment that I just described where you're catching them in lies, that narcissist has decided, well, I know that honesty matters, but in this moment, I'm trying to manipulate you. And so the manipulation takes priority or precedence over what the conscience would say. That's what I mean when I say they have an underdeveloped conscience. Or let's take another illustration. Let's suppose that you're working on a project with that person and you've done something that they don't really appreciate or they don't really understand. And so they go into a sabotaging kind of mode. They can talk badly about you to other individuals. They can be non-cooperative. All right, pause right there. Somewhere in that narcissist's mind, they would realize, well, having a sense of cooperation and trying to talk things out in a clean way, that really would make sense. I mean, at some point in their life, they've heard something of that nature, but in the moment where they're sabotaging you, it's like, well, okay, all this business about coordination, cooperation, yeah, that's for somebody else. I'm not going to do it. And so they go about with their need for superiority, and that cancels out what their conscience would tell them to do. That's another illustration of the underdeveloped conscience. Or another illustration. Let's suppose that there's a conflict between you and that narcissist. You've said something, you've done something, and the narcissist is feeling angry or upset. Okay, pause right there. Fair enough. We all have our moments where we feel upset. Your conscience would cause you to think, well, okay, the fact that I'm feeling upset and angry is not in and of itself the problem. What I want to make sure is that even as I'm trying to maneuver through the anger, I can still maintain a sense of dignity and decency. I know that that narcissist has heard something of that regard, dignity and decency, but it's like, nope, my feelings in the moment are so strong that I couldn't care less about that. And so their conscience is laid aside, and then they just go into that control and that superiority and that lack of empathy. That takes priority over whatever their moral compass might imply that they do. As a result, these individuals tend not to have a lot of guilt. They tend not to take responsibility for whatever contributions they make to the difficulties that are there in front of them. And you can see that whatever their conscience might lead them to do, it's not strong enough to prompt them to say, I need to be the better person here. Another illustration, let's suppose that you've asked that narcissist to help you out on something. And they say, sure, I'll be glad to. And then later on you realize you never had any kind of intention at all to help me out, did you? And because they renege, or they can just go into the passive aggressive mode, or they may go into the silent treatment. It's like, I just said that in the moment. Okay, their conscience would say, if you say something, you'll let your yes be yes, your no be no. Just make your word count. But in the moment, that narcissist is thinking, well, actually, it's my needs, my selfishness that matters more. And so it discounts whatever it is they say to you. Now, when you really break it down and ask, how does this happen? Basically, you'd like to think that during childhood and adolescence, that's when so much of the training and teaching about your moral compass comes into play. You'd like to think that these individuals would have a sense that says, I know what I believe, I know it's right, and many of them had lots of training and teaching on that. But there would be one huge ingredient that would be missing in terms of their ability to take that moral teaching and that moral compass and apply it in moments of need. And that is, these individuals don't have a sense of empathy. To have a healthy and well-rounded conscience, you need to have a sense that says, well, there's me, and I have my needs and my preferences, but there's you too. And you have your needs and your preferences. I have my interpretations, but so do you. And that empathetic person thinks, well, let me make sure that as I engage with people that I'm also factoring in the impact of my life upon other individuals, which means I need to understand them from their perspective. The narcissist has an underdeveloped empathy for whatever reason that may be. And so in their moments, when it comes time to apply what the conscience would say is necessary, the conscience basically exists in intellect only. It doesn't have that heart element, and so their lack of heart connection with other individuals keeps the conscience from developing as fully as it would need. So when it comes to crunch time, and that inner voice would say, okay, here's the better way to go. Well, healthy individuals understand the value of self-restraint. They understand the value of living with the big picture in mind. The narcissist is like, whatever that conscience is trying to tell me, it gets in the way for my need to be in control. It gets in the way for my need to establish superiority. Thanks, but no thanks. That's the underdeveloped conscience. Most of them, all of them at some level know the difference between right and wrong, but they've made the decision that says, well, my current agenda is far more important than right versus wrong. That conscience stuff, that's for sissies. Or I'll even pretend like I have a great conscience, which is their dishonesty, but ultimately it doesn't carry me. My self-absorption is what carries me. My self-absorption defines me. That's how they think. That being the case, I hope that you can see that you're going to need to adjust your expectations accordingly and realize these are not individuals that you can engage with on a meaningful level, and know what you're dealing with, and know that these people lack that ultimate ingredient of empathy that allows them to have a heart connection with you and set your boundaries accordingly. It may be that you're going to have to continue to engage with them, but engage knowing that they're not going to be able to approach life in the same meaningful way that you do. But in the meantime, I want you to have that commitment that says, I'm going to live into what I know the better alternative to be. And if this person has no conscience, or an underdeveloped conscience, I'm sorry, by the way, there's one other thing I was going to mention. Sometimes these people can get so deep into their lack of honesty and their lack of, or their unwillingness to follow their conscience. You've heard the term seared conscience. They have a seared conscience. It's like that inner voice that I was describing just doesn't even sound off anymore. That's how bad it can get. In the meantime, I'm hoping you can have the better alternative that says, I live with a well-developed sense of who I am and where I'm going, and it's going to show up in those smaller moments. That's when you know that you get it. Well, I hope that videos such as this give you some good food for thought. If you've not already done so, I hope that you would subscribe to our channel. And when you subscribe, hit that bell that goes along with it, and it'll give you more videos that come along. If you have a need for counseling, and sometimes as you try to sift all this out, you know that having an objective person to walk you through some of it could be very helpful. If you have someone in your area that could assist you, I would encourage you to do that. Or if you prefer, we have a link below that takes you to an online counseling service. It's one of our sponsors, and there's a whole team of licensed professional therapists that could assist you through that, and you could choose somebody that could help you there. In addition, we have our courses, and these are not just one-off webinars, but these are extensive courses with many videos and worksheets. We have my Free to Be course, and we also have my new one, This Is Me, Establishing Boundaries with the Controllers in Your Life, and I hope that you would find those to be quite therapeutic. We also have links to my books, etc., and so avail yourself to our resources. Well, I do hope that you're a person that has a well-developed conscience. The narcissist is very underdeveloped, and as you engage with them, at least you can engage with a mind awake, and as you do, it allows you to have a sense of objectivity so that you're not going to get pulled into the unhealthiness that they so desperately want you to join them in. It's like, thanks but no thanks. I'm over here on Team Healthy.